Okay, hello. Here we are again. This is session number 144. 144 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Alrighty, we are still in chapter 18, the passing of the dream. And today we will focus on section 3, Roman numeral 3, entitled Light in the Dream. Right, on page 378 in the text. Alrighty. And you notice throughout the text, this is one of the themes, so to speak, the dream. Okay? And he's going to tell us, it's like you fell asleep. All right? You're still at home, dreaming of exile. All right? And this is another wonderful little section that's almost, at once it's like a pep talk, like Jesus encouraging us and telling us how wonderful we are. And it's another way of reminding us, just look at the ego and its machinations, and look at your ties to it. Look at your identification with it. And that's it. Just leave it at that. Don't judge yourself. Stop before the judgments happen. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I've been studying this and that for so long. Why can't I be free of the ego? Stop it. Don't do that, please. Or notice when you're doing it. And it's another good opportunity to step back and ask Jesus, can you help me see myself? Help me see myself correctly. I'm judging myself. Jesus is always, this entire text, he says this is not about love. This is about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And the ego system is the block. So he's asking us to just look at it. All right? Forgiveness, it merely looks and waits and judges not. Okay? That's it, just look. And after a while you say, wow, I'm tired of doing that. You know? Like they used to say in therapy, I guess, in the last century. You notice that you're going down the same street and falling in the same hole. And if you stop judging yourself for it, sooner or later you'll notice, oh, I'm going to avoid that hole. And then later on, you're going to say, oh, I'm going to avoid that street. Just don't judge yourself. I mean, we identify so firmly with this ego thought system, with the thought of separation from God, that these are the things that unfold. Jesus is just telling us, just look at them. And let me help you change your perspective. Right? Come to me. Let me help you change your perspective. That's what he's saying. Okay. Well, now let's see what he says. Light in the dream. Paragraph 1. You who have spent your life in bringing truth to illusion, reality to fantasy, have walked the way of dreams. For you have gone from waking to sleeping, and on to yet a deeper sleep. Each dream has led to other dreams. Every fantasy that seemed to bring a light into the darkness, but made the darkness deeper. Your goal was darkness, in which no ray of light could enter, and you sought a blackness so complete that you could hide from truth forever, in complete insanity. What you forgot was simply that God cannot destroy himself. The light is in you. Darkness can cover it up, but cannot put it out. Okay? He says that's what you forgot. That you are a part of God. You know, the old saying that, you know, me and him are like this. Well, you and God are like that. There's no separation there. There's no, as they say, there's no place where God ends and you begin. Right? You are an integral part of God. And God cannot destroy himself. Right? He says, you forgot that. And so so the goal was darkness. You wanted to stay in there where no light could get in. Okay? Because the light and the ego thought system, the light is a threat. It represents destruction to the ego. The ego doesn't want it. The ego wants to maintain itself. And so it gives us the message that God is angry. Don't go to meet God. Don't go to meet Jesus. They're going to trick you. They're going to kill you for what you did. They're going to put you in hell for eternity. Yikes. Nobody wants that. And so we stay away from the light. All right? He says, your goal was darkness in which no ray of light could enter. All right? And you sought a blackness so complete that you could hide from truth forever. In complete insanity. Okay? As Groucho Marx used to say, I resemble that remark. But that's what Jesus is saying. This ego thought system keeps telling us, hide from the truth, hide from the light. It's going to destroy you. Right? It's going to get even. Right? And then Jesus says that you spent your whole life bringing truth to the illusion. Right? Bring reality to fantasy. We're living in fantasies. Right? And we have walked the way of dreams. For you have gone from waking to sleeping. You've gone from being awake with your Creator to sleeping. Okay? And on to yet a deeper sleep. And he says each dream has led to other dreams. And every fantasy that seemed to bring a light into the darkness just made the darkness deeper. Okay? There's special relationships. So this is going to help me. Or this is what I need. Right? This is going to make me happy. This is going to be pleasurable. There's nothing wrong with the pleasure, but it's not infinite. That's what I'm saying. And, you know, so I'll get this. And I'll get that because I need to be secure. And he says, just leads to other dreams. And it makes the darkness even deeper. Because we think, oh yeah, this is where it's at. Right? I get some moments of happiness over here. Some moments of comfort over here. Some moments of security over here. And I think, oh, that's great. Let me do that again. And the darkness just gets deeper because we keep reinforcing the fact that we're separated from God and it's okay. I can handle it. All right? So, your goal was darkness. And what you forgot was simply, he says, simply, that God cannot destroy himself. Right? You cannot destroy heaven. You cannot leave the mind of God, right? You cannot walk away from the Father. Right? You can believe you did it, but you didn't do it. And this is what he's saying. The light is in you. All right? Darkness can cover it, but it can't put it out. It cannot put it out. All right? It's there. All right? No matter what you think of yourself. All right? The light is in you. All right? There's a lesson that begins. You think you are the home of evil, darkness, and sin. And that's what the ego thought system is. It tells you, well, you did it. You destroyed heaven. You're pretty evil. All right? But Jesus says, no, the light is in you. The darkness can cover it, but it can't put it out. Paragraph 2. As the light comes nearer to you, you will rush to darkness, shrinking from the truth, sometimes retreating to the lesser forms of fear, and sometimes to stark terror. But you will advance, because your goal is the advance from fear to truth. The goal you accepted is the goal of knowledge, for which you signified your willingness. Fear seems to live in darkness, and when you are afraid, you have stepped back. Let us then join quickly in an instant of light, and it will be enough to remind you that your goal is light. All right? He says somewhere along the line, you were willing to go toward the truth. Somewhere along the line, could be just that split instant, that thought that said, I'm tired of this. Right? There must be something else. There must be something better. Right? And that's the invitation. Show me. Show me the better thing. Lead me there. And so he says, let's join quickly in an instant of light. Just that willingness. Help me to see the truth. All right. And he says, and it will be enough to remind you that your goal is light. All right. But in the beginning of this paragraph, he says, as the light comes closer to you, all right, you will rush to darkness. This is one of those times when Jesus is just pointing out what it is that we do. Right? It's almost reflexive, all right? But there is a choice, of course, a very quick choice. All right? It seems reflexive, but as the light comes closer, we rush back to hold on to the ego thought system. And we shrink away from the truth, right? Sometimes he says, you retreat to lesser forms of terror, and other times to stark terror. Lesser forms of fear, and sometimes to stark terror. Right? So he says, just notice, that's what you do. You don't blame yourself for it. All what Jesus is asking to do is look at it without judgment and ask me to help you. Ask me to help you with your perception of things. Right? But he says, but even though that's the dance, you're going to advance toward truth and then you run away. He says, you will advance. Right? Because your goal is the advance from fear to truth. That's your goal. When he just said, I've had enough of this crazy world. I can't stand it anymore. You might have had a brief thought like that. Help me. Okay? He says, you will advance because that's your goal, is to get to the truth. The goal you accepted is the goal of knowledge. Right? Because after we pass through and get to the real world, the next step is knowledge, which arises, all right, of itself. And that knowledge is, you know who you are. You know who your Father is in relationship to you. Right? You know exactly what you are. That's knowledge. For which you signified your willingness. That's all you need, is the willingness. Right? You don't have to know what it looks like. You don't have to even know how to get there. You just have to be willing to get there. And you will be guided. Fear seems to live in darkness. And when you're afraid, you've stepped back. Right? So he says, when you notice you've stepped back, he says, let's join quickly in an instant of light. Just like, as Ken would always say, help. Can he say help? All right. And you're directing it to your inner guide. That's joining quickly in an instant of light. And that will be enough to remind you that your goal is light, not to continue reinforcing separation. Your goal is light. All right. Paragraph 3. Truth has rushed to meet you since you called upon it. If you knew who walks beside you on the way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. You do not know because the journey into darkness has been long and cruel, and you have gone deep into it. A little flicker of your eyelids, closed so long, has not yet been sufficient to give you confidence in yourself, so long despised. You go toward love, still hating it, and terribly afraid of its judgment upon you. And you do not realize that you are not afraid of love, but only what you have made of it. You are advancing to love's meaning, and away from all illusions in which you have surrounded it. When you retreat to the illusion, your fear increases. For there is little doubt that what you think it means is fearful. Yet, what is that to us who travel surely and very swiftly away from fear? All right? He says, when you retreat into the illusion, your fear increases. It's like it never left. It gets worse. He says, but there's little doubt that what you think it means is fearful. Right? There's little doubt that what you think the truth is fearful. The truth is going to destroy you. God is looking for payback. All right? Because you destroyed heaven. All right? You come in contact with the truth, with the light, and you're gonna get nailed. He says, you do not realize that you are not afraid of love, but only what you've made of it. Right? We made God into an angry father. Right? So we're afraid to meet him. Right? He says, and the truth has rushed to meet you. And that's what happens every time we have that little instant of light. The truth, the entirety of truth rushes toward us. Right? And we take in as much as we can stand, and then we scurry back. And that's just the dance, it seems. All right? So don't condemn yourself for the dance. All right? We're all good dancers. All right? Truth has rushed to meet you since you called upon it. And if you knew who walks beside you on the way you have chosen, fear would be impossible. All right? If you knew who walks beside you, that unconditional love walks beside you. All right? symbolized by Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Right? And if you like, all the angels of heaven, they walk with you. He says, if you knew that, you wouldn't be afraid. And he says, and that's exactly what's happening. And he says, you do not know because the journey into darkness has been long and cruel, and you have gone deep into it. Right? This journey into the darkness, into the thought of separation. And if you take some inventory, it has been long and cruel. I mean, really. And, for some, it's been more cruel. Right? But there's cruelty in everybody's life. We're even cruel to ourselves. And he says, you've gone deep into this dream. Right? And he's comparing our experience, even with the Course, as a little flickering of the eyelids, as if you're about to wake up. All right? A little flicker of your eyelids closed so long has not yet been sufficient to give you confidence in yourself, so long despised. All right? So he says, you're getting there, but you still don't have enough confidence in yourself, and you've been despising yourself for a long time. Right? Thinking that you destroyed heaven. That's the secret. It was me that did it. I separated from God. All right? And so we have this approach avoidance situation going on. We go toward love, still hating it, and terribly afraid of its judgment upon me and upon you. And you do not realize that you're not afraid of love, but only what you've made of it. Right? We've made love out to be vengeful. Right? You are advancing to love's meaning, all right? You really are. That's what he tells you. And away from all the illusions in which you've surrounded it. This is when you retreat into the illusion, your fear increases. He says, but what is that? What is that to those of us who travel surely and very swiftly away from fear? He goes, don't let it bother you. He goes, what is that? So you took a step back. Come forward. Come with me. See, in other words, he's telling you, don't judge yourself. Okay? You had a slip. Okay. Get right back up there. All right? And here he's going to talk about the idea, the key is forgiveness. It's the willingness to see the spark in the other. Excuse me. In paragraph 4, you who hold your brother's hand also hold mine. For when you joined each other, you were not alone. Do you believe that I would leave you in the darkness that you agreed to leave with me? In your relationship is this world's light, and fear must disappear before you now. Be tempted not to snatch it away. Be tempted not to snatch away the gift of faith you offer to your brother. You will succeed only in frightening yourself. The gift is given forever, for God himself received it. You cannot take it back. You have accepted God. The holiness of your relationship is established in heaven. You do not understand what you accepted, but remember that your understanding is not necessary. All that was necessary was merely to wish to understand. That wish was the desire to be holy. The will of God is granted you, for you desire the only thing you ever had or ever were. Right? The will of God is granted you because what you want is the only thing you ever had or the only thing you ever were. And that was the offspring of the Creator. Right? Okay. You have accepted God. Right? And that's it. When we decide, that little willingness, that wish, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue. I don't want to be in conflict. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to dislike myself. All these, there's myriad things. And we just say, I don't want to be like that anymore. He says, that's your wish to be holy. That little willingness to see something different. And that's all it takes. All that was necessary was merely the wish to understand. All right? He says, you do not understand, but you accept it. But remember, your understanding is not necessary. All right? At one point he says, your understanding makes no contribution to the truth. All right? Not trying to put us down, he's just trying to tell you, don't be trying to figure stuff out. Right? You just have to want that relationship with your Father. You just have to want that relationship with the oneness, with holiness, with truth, whatever word you want to plug in there. Okay? And that wish is the desire to be holy. And the will of God is granted. It's just that we have what we think is this dance going back and forth. Oh, I'm afraid. No, I want to be holy. I'm afraid. And it goes back and forth, so don't judge yourself. That's the big thing. Don't judge yourself. All right? Just trust that your eyes are opening. All right? And you're willing to have your perspective corrected. And then he goes on. Well, in that paragraph, he's also telling us he's not going to desert us. He's not going to abandon you. All right? He says, do you believe I would leave you in the darkness, that you agreed to leave with me? All right? When we invited him, help me, guide me. He says, you think I'm going to leave you alone in the forest? All right? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be with you always. As the New Testament says, even unto the consummation of the world. Right? I know when I was a kid that line always helped me. I was very impressed by it. And I believe it gave me a lot of comfort. Right? It was very succinct, kind of generalized everything. Right? And this is what he keeps telling us. I'm not going to leave you. All right? The gift is given forever. All right? The holiness of your relationship is established in heaven. And that's my relationship with the right mind, with Jesus, right? With the Holy Spirit. Right? He says that relationship is established in heaven. And it's reflected in our willingness to see that spark, right, in the other, just to see the other correctly. Right? They don't have to change. We don't have to make them change. We don't even have to tell them, hey, I'm trying to see you correctly. All right? It's all about you. All right? As Ken would always say, there's nobody else out there. All right? You're dreaming this. But you've accepted God. All right? And the holiness of your relationship is established. All right? He says you don't understand what you accepted, but you don't have to. You don't have to understand it. You just have to wish. All right? You just have to have that wish to understand. That wish was the desire to be holy. All right, paragraph 5. Each instant that we spend together will teach you that this goal is possible. Okay? That's your holiness. That goal is possible. All right? And will strengthen with your desire to reach it. And in your desire lies its accomplishment. Your desire is now in complete accord with all the power of the Holy Spirit's will. No little faltering steps that you may take can separate your desire from His will and from His strength. I hold your hand as surely as you agreed to take your brother's. You will not separate, for I stand with you and walk with you in your advance to truth. And where we go, we carry God with us. All right? It's a very powerful, succinct little sentences. There's no complexity in the formation of the sentence. All right? He says, each instant we spend together will teach you that this goal is possible. It's possible that you will remember who you are. It's possible that you will realize that you are holy. Okay? He says, in your desire lies the accomplishment. The goal is possible and will strengthen with your desire to reach it. Every time we have that desire, help me to see correctly. So you're strengthening the goal, right? And those flickering eyelids are opening more. Right? And once again, he assures us. He says, I hold your hand as surely as you agreed to take your brother's. He said, you will not separate, for I stand with you and walk with you in your advance to truth. And where we go, we carry God with us. As we're asking to have our perceptions change, we become that channel. God is with us, right? Paragraph 6. In your relationship, you have joined with me in bringing heaven to the Son of God, who hid in darkness. You have been willing to bring the darkness to light, and this willingness has given strength to everyone who would remain in darkness. Those who would see will see, and they will join with me in carrying their light into the darkness. And when the darkness in them is offered to the light and is removed forever, my need for you, joined with me in the holy light of your relationship, is your need for salvation. Would I not give you what you gave to me? For when you joined your brother, you answered me. Right? And that is the whole idea, is that there's only oneness. Right? There's only the oneness. This is in your relationship. Now we're talking about on the metaphysical level with the relationship with the truth, with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus. Help me to see correctly. I'm willing to see correctly. Right? And then I'm willing on this earth plane, I'm willing to see the other correctly. I'm willing to have my perception about them changed. And you're helping everyone who is hiding in darkness, because there's only one mind, minds are joined. Okay? So you're helping everyone to wake up. All right? And then he says in paragraph 6, sentence 3, those who would see will see. All right? So those who have the desire to see, which is the truth, want to see the truth, right? He says, you will. You will. All right? In that other place in the book, he says, once the goal is established, that's that desire to see, that willingness to see. He says, the end is certain. He says, you will see. You will advance to the awareness of truth, and everything will be okay. All right? And they will join with me in carrying the light into the darkness. When the darkness in them is offered to the light and is removed forever. All right? So, he says, you've joined your brother and therefore answered me. So I will supply everything you need. All right. This is a wonderful little pep talk. It's like, we're a little bit past halftime, so it's not a halftime speech. But it's like the coach in the timeout. It's a timeout. And he's reminding us, if you desire to see, you will see. Keep going. I'm with you. All right? Paragraph 7. You who are now the bringer of salvation have the function of bringing light to darkness. The darkness in you has been brought to light. Carry it back to darkness from the holy instant to which you brought it. We are made whole in our desire to make whole. Let not time worry you, for all the fear that you and your brother experience is really past. This time has been adjusted to help us do together what your separate pasts would hinder. You have gone past fear, for no two minds can join in the desire for love without love joining them. Okay? So, he says, now you are a bringer of salvation. Because that's what you want. You want the truth. Right? And the truth will dissolve the thought of separation. And therefore, then that's what salvation is. The freedom from that thought of separation. The freedom from the ego. Right? And he says, because of your desire, your wish, your asking, help me to see correctly. He says, the darkness in you has been brought to light. So bring the light back with you. Right? When you come back into the physical realm, into form. Right? It only takes an instant to connect with Jesus, And then he says, and when you come back, after that sincere connection, he says, you're bringing the light with you. Right? From the holy instant to which you brought it. All right? And then take note of these sentences like this. He says, we are made whole in our desire to make whole. I have a desire, right, to become aware of the truth, which will make my mind whole. Right? No more split mind. Right? And he says, we're made whole in our desire to make whole. I just want it. I just want it, and I want to see it outside of me. I want to have my perceptions changed. And he says, don't worry about time. All right? He says, for all the fear that you and your brother experience is really past. And this is just another quick way, and you can miss it, where Jesus tells you, this is all over. All right? This is done deal. All right? You've reached the atonement. The atonement happened. All right? The atonement says you never left God. He goes, it's done. He says, you're just living in this dream right now. He says, but in actuality, you are at home in God. Right? So don't worry about time. Right? Time has been readjusted to help us do together what your separate past would hinder. Right? So he says, time dissolves in the holy instant. Right? And it's been adjusted, so there's no more past. There's no sin, in other words. There's no sin. And he says, and your separate past would only hinder that. So why even bother, right, looking at that? Right? Or letting it hinder you. Let's just say that I wouldn't want to rule out anyone taking it as the fearless moral inventory, as they say, or going to therapy. All those things are very helpful. All right? So looking into the physical past, okay? It's all very helpful. But Jesus is just telling you, don't let it bother you. It's over. You're sinless. That's his point, is that you're sinless. You didn't destroy heaven. You didn't kill God. You have gone past fear. For no two minds can join in the desire for love without love's joining them. So, these two minds, as if they were separate, it's you and Jesus, right? Or it's even Helen and Bill, who they said, you know, there must be a better way, and Helen says, yes, I'll help you find it. Bang, they joined in that quest for love. But it doesn't mean that you know, the other person needs to be involved in, you know, your spiritual path, so to speak. It's just you and Jesus, you and your inner guide. Okay, paragraph 8. Ocho. Ba. In Chinese, I think. Not one light in heaven but goes with you. Not one ray that shines forever in the mind of God but shines on you. Heaven is joined with you in your advance to heaven. When such great lights have joined with you to give the little spark of your desire the power of God himself, can you remain in darkness? You and your brother are coming home together after a long and meaningless journey that you undertook apart and that led nowhere. You have found your brother, and you will light each other's way. And from this light will the great rays extend back into darkness and forward unto God, to shine away the past, and so make room for his eternal presence, in which everything is radiant in light. Okay, so when we've made this decision, right? And don't try to think, but when did I do that? if you're listening to me, right, trying to glean some sort of spiritual insight or something, or to better yourself, or you're listening to any number of wonderful teachers that are around, right? You had Ram Dass and Gangaji and Muji today, and Eckhart Tolle. Right? It was basically they're all talking about the same things, you're just using different words. But it's your desire to connect with that. As Gangaji would say, you are that. And your desire to connect with it, right, gives you the strength of all the lights in heaven. He says, not one light in heaven but goes with you. That means every light in heaven goes with you. He says, not one ray shines forever in the mind of God, but shines on you. Right? Every ray that shines in the mind of God is shining on you. Heaven is joined with you in your advance toward heaven. Right? He says, you just don't recognize it sometimes. You don't understand the extent. He says, but you don't have to understand. It's there because of your desire, your wish, your willingness. All right? When such great lights have joined with you to give the little spark of your desire, the power of God himself, can you remain in darkness? All right. So he says, with such great light has joined you, can you still be in the dark? All right. You and your brother are coming home together. Right? And that's the idea of the forgiveness, being willing to see that spark in the other. As I say, they don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to tell them, I'm looking for that spark in you. That should start an interesting back and forth. Right? It's just that desire to see correctly. I'm tired of the conflict between me and the other. Right? And there's plenty of others, believe me. You know that. And they come everywhere. And like Jesus says, there's thousands of them. Behind each one stands 1,000 more. Right? So it's our desire to see all of them correctly. Right? And he says, you're willing to see correctly. Your willingness to see correctly, right, will light your path. And the others will light their path, unbeknownst to them. Right? So you'll light each other's path. And from this light, the great rays, several times in the text, Jesus refers to the great rays. Right? It's trying to describe you and your existence in the oneness, in heaven, so to speak. The great rays. Okay. From this light will the great rays extend back into the darkness and forward unto God to shine away the past, right? The idea of sin and separation and guilt. Right? So this light shines away the past, and it makes room for the eternal presence of God, the eternal now. Right? It shines away the past. And this is all involved in your willingness to have your perspective changed. Right? You didn't realize how powerful that entreaty was. Right? He says, everything in heaven goes with you with that desire. And it lights the way to the eternal presence of love, of God, of your Creator. Any way you want to think of that. Right? and it makes way for that, it makes room for the eternal presence in which everything is radiant in light. Right? Everything is radiant in light, and that's where we're going. He says, you'll get there. You will get there. He says, just notice the machinations of the ego. When you get close to the truth, you get close to the light. I'm getting out of here. All right? And there's all different ways to, reinsert yourself into the ego dream. Okay? Just notice. Don't condemn yourself. That's the way out, is to look. Right? That's the way to dissolve illusions, he says, is to look at them. Okay? And that's the light in the dream. Right? You wish to connect with the light, and you become the light. All righty then. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next session. Adios.